Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of the Python tutorial series. Today we will pick up from where we left off last week and look at functions in more detail. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. First, let's write a quick function that elevates numbers to a given power. We can do this by writing def power of num for number and p for power. The result will then be equal to number elevated to p, and then we can return the result. If we run the code by pressing the F5 key and then saying on the right hand side power of say 5, 2, that will give us 5 raised to the power of 2, which of course is 25. If we say power of 5, 3, that will give us 125. But what if we know that most people will want to elevate numbers to the power of 2? Well, that's where our first topic for today comes in: default arguments. A default argument occurs simply when we assign a default value to one or more of the input variables of our function. We can do this in our example by setting the value of p to be equal to 2. But remember, this doesn't mean that the value of p cannot be changed. It simply means that if we don't specify a value when we call the function, then the function will assume the default value. So if we run this code again by pressing F5, if we say power of 5, 3 like before, it will still give us 5 to the power of 3. But if we simply say power of 5 and we don't write the second argument, then it will assume a value of 2 and will therefore give us 5 to the power of 2, which is 25. Now, before we look at a different topic, let's write a quick function that returns the sum of its input variables. We can say define calc sum of a, b, c, and then the result will be equal to the sum of a, b, and c. And then, of course, as usual, we will return the result. Now, if we run this file, and then on the right-hand side we say calc sum of 1, 2, 3, that will of course give us 6. Now, as you can see, we have 3 input arguments for our function. But what if we didn't know how many arguments there were, or simply we had a varying number of arguments? Well, we can circumvent this problem by adopting a particular notation which uses an asterisk before the name of a variable. And what this represents is the fact that the number of input arguments may change, and therefore allows our function to accommodate any variations. We can do this by writing, instead of a, b, c, which specifies how many variables we have, we can write asterisk args, where args is short for arguments, and we can do the same inside of the sum function. If we run our file and then write on the right hand side calc sum of 1, 2, 3, you will see that it gives us the same result as before. That's good. But now, what's nice is that if we write calc sum of 1, 2, 3, 4, so we now have 4 different arguments to our function will still work and it will give us the right number. Our final topic for today is local and global variables. These are very simple to understand, as global variables are generally defined outside of a function and can be used both inside and outside the function. Local variables instead are defined inside a function and can only be used inside the specific function they have been defined in. So let's look at this example, which is a slight variation of our power function from before. The only difference is that a global variable a has been added outside the function, which is then used inside the function to multiply the result. So the variable a can be considered a global variable and can therefore be used both inside and outside the function. The variables num and p, on the other hand, are local variables that can only be used inside the function. Having seen the difference between local and global variables, we have now reached the end of this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and share this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes. If you've missed any of my previous tutorials, you can check those out by clicking on the box in the top right hand corner of your screen, or alternatively, you can find a link to these in the video description. Next week, I will be introducing our second Python coding challenge, so make sure you don't miss the chance of putting your skills to the test. If you missed the first coding challenge, no need to worry. You can access it by clicking on the box in the top right hand corner of your screen or on the link in the video description. All that's left for me to say now is see you next week and happy coding!